Do you or someone you know struggle with reading? Do you know someone who maybe has dyslexia, who has just given up thinking, gee, it's just too difficult? It really doesn't matter whether you're 8 or 98, reading is a possibility. In fact, you can learn to read English in 2.5 hours. I know that sounds unbelievable, but today on our show, we have Craig who's going to come and share his method of how you can learn to read and become a confident reader and a competent reader in literally 2.5 hours. Hi, my name is Cheryl Bassett, and I'm founder of Unstoppable Connections and international bestseller and creator of the award-winning Unstoppable Family Meeting Toolkit. I am also the host for this show, Kitchen Table Conversations. I get to share something that my family created called the 4 gifts. Those 4 gifts are all about how families can become an unbreakable, unshakable family with a foundation built around trust. If you'd like to learn more about the 4 gifts and how your family can connect around them, you can go to unstoppableconnections.com, and you can even download my free award-winning mini book on the front page of the website. Or if you have an idea or you'd like to be on this show, you can go to kitchentableconversations.com. Now, I want to introduce this show in a way that I introduce every show, because I just believe it's so important to set that intention. But we do the fun stuff to the tough stuff and everything in between. Today's sort of, I don't know, it's kind of a mix, right? But it's going to be fun because I know that Craig shares some amazing stories. But it's with the intention of really our 4th gift, which is the gift of love, where we choose to celebrate ourselves and others. It's with that intention that we invite every guest who comes on this show, because they're here giving up their heart, their passion, and their talent. So it's with that I want to welcome Craig to the show. But before I bring him on screen and you get to see his amazing smile, I want to just read a little bit about his bio. But Craig Collings has traveled the world sharing his revolutionary universal reading method and his book, The Reading Miracle. And it really is a reading method that allows non-readers to become readers within 2.5 hours. Along his journey, he has taught people of all ages, all backgrounds, how to read. There is a simpler way to read, Craig says, one that can improve the education system and to help people live better lives throughout the world. I've had the personal opportunity to hear some of Craig's stories just in getting to know him to prepare for this show. You're going to be amazed at what he gets to share with us today. So with that, let me bring him into, let me bring me back. I'll figure this out. There we go. I always get it backwards. But anyway, welcome, Craig, to the show.
Good morning, Cheryl, from California.
Yeah, it's morning.
Thank you for having me on your show.
Oh no, I'm thrilled to have you, because I think you're doing something really. I mean, when I told a few people, like I've been talking about, like I'm going to have this guy come and talk about how you learn to read English in 2.5 hours, they're like, what? So I think it's sort of fascinating, right, to people how that can be. But I know for you, the stories just keep appearing, right? So tell us a little bit, though, before we get into some of the amazing things that you've done. How did you get started with what you're doing?
Well, it's very significant. My brother invented the universal reading method, and my brother was unable to read until he was 30 years old, and I did not know.
How old was he again? You might have to speak up, just to make sure everybody can hear you.
I'm sorry, he was 30 years old. My
30,
brother
okay.
learned to read.
Yeah.
And I didn't learn that he couldn't read until he was 40 years old. So it was a big secret in our family that my brother couldn't read. But my brother discovered the reading method because he had graduated from college and he went to a school called Pepperdine where they gave him oral tests. So he never had to really read. They would give him oral tests. And then he would attend lectures and he remembered things amazingly. So he went to law school. And when he got there, the words were, huge words. And so he didn't think he was going to be able to make it. So he told the instructor, the professor there, that he couldn't read the words. And so the guy said, well, we don't ask you to memorize the words. We ask you to put them into concepts, and then we work with the concepts. My brother had never heard of that before, and it was really a revelation. So he went home, but still frustrated, not believing that he was going to overcome this. And he got up the next morning, and he sat down with a pen and a paper, and he was doodling, and all of a sudden he started writing. and he had this spontaneous writing experience, and it was revealed to him, this reading method.
Wow.
And it was so profound that he went back to school and he graduated the first in his class in law school. And he couldn't, before that, read. I mean, it was like, night and day. So it was a big deal. I want to add one thing that's real important. I've been thinking about it all morning about the interview today. And a lot of people are thinking of people who can't read as being somewhat lower or less than, or my brother was called a lot of names. And I personally had a learning disability when I was in high school, and I graduated with a very low GPA. So I'm really very aware of what people say to you, maybe to help you to go along and become more or do better. But the people that are dyslexic, which is a word that people are using, I don't like that word at all, or developmentally disabled, they tell people that they're this and that, all negative. The person who can't read is brilliant. Honestly, their brain is different. And there's a study that says that there's 90 million adults in the United States who can't read. 90 million adults have evolved to the level of what? Less than? I don't think so. Nothing ever evolves to less than. So what's happening is actually is we're having more genius, more brilliance evolving.
Right.
But they don't learn to read. But it isn't that they don't learn to read. They don't learn to read the way they're taught in school. They don't learn to read because they don't want to memorize 400 little jingles about reading to be able to say one word.
Right.
They want a formula. And the formula is simple. And that's what we have created. My brother created, and through an epiphany. I mean, it's from someone who is really there. We really relate to you. I really relate to you. I love you if you have challenges with reading. I see you as brilliant.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding.
And that's so important, right? Because I do think sometimes, it's not just with reading, but whenever somebody's different, there's a tendency to want to think, okay, well, they're not like me. And so, it's just that acceptance piece. But I'm sure that the people that can't read also feel that about themselves. So if you can give them back their voice just around even having that self-esteem, and understanding that just because they can't read, they might be actually more brilliant than anybody in the room, right? So I think that's really powerful and positive for them to be aware of. So that thank you for sharing that additional piece. But so I know we're not going to be able to get through all of this, and for those of you watching, and for those of you who might hear this on a podcast as well, Craig does have your book is called.
It's called The Reading Miracle.
The Reading Miracle.
And we launched it, and we were #1 on the bestseller list for Amazon.
Great.
So we're very proud of that. That was really exciting to be able to be #1 on Amazon.
Yeah, I want to point that out because we're going to get through some of this today, right? Where you get to kind of share some of the stories and a little bit about how it works. But really, if people want to learn it, they've got to get your book, and you also have a course, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So
and you've got some banners that you're going to put up that we'll share with them.
Yeah, we'll put up the banner for your website here. In fact, I'll go ahead and throw it up now, just because since we're talking about it. But for those of you who might actually be listening too, though, it's the www.universalreadingmethod.com. We'll bring it up again at the end, but it's universalreadingmethod.com, because I know some people are going to see this video and some people are going to hear it on podcast. So I want to make sure we say it out loud as well. But let's just talk about them, because you've written this book. But I know that there's in the book, there's stories, some of the stories, right? So go ahead. I mean, I know you have favorites. So just tell me one of your most favorite stories. And I know you've had a couple things happen recently. Maybe they've moved into first place, but what's one of your most favorite stories that you can tell about somebody who went from literally in this 2.5 hour time period, miraculously able to read?
Well, I have a favorite story, and I do want to just preface it with that I was skeptical when my brother told me about the reading method. So if anybody that's out there is skeptical, thinks this is, snake oil or whatever, I'm right there with you. And I did things for you so that I could convince you and tell you what was going on. I didn't understand what was going on. We were teaching people to read. They were becoming readers in 2.5 hours, sometimes less than 2.5 hours. That's a really big deal. And it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make linear sense to me or anybody.
Right.
So I traveled. That's when I went on my travel. And that's what I wrote my book about. And I'm going to tell you a story. But I traveled all over the United States, up into Canada. I went over to the UK. I used, they speak with a different accent. It had no impact negative at all. Everybody became a reader. And I looked for people. I looked for people that had challenges with reading for different reasons. So dyslexia was one that was, we were really good at dyslexia. And then
Right.
Asperger's syndrome. We're excellent at transforming somebody who can't read one word at all and goes up to reading 475 multi-syllable words from the GED. So one of my favorite stories is about a young man, and he came to me. He was 10 years old, and he was dressed like Harry Potter, and he's a sweetheart. I just loved him.
Did you say he's dressed like Harry Potter? Is that what you said?
Harry Potter,
okay,
yeah.
That's cool. We like Harry Potter. That's good.
And then he had Harry Potter's first volume under his arm, and he had never read it before, but he carried it.
But he carried the book, because that would be a cool thing to do for sure.
So he had a type of autism where he was very focused and obsessed with Harry Potter. So I brought him on, and in the beginning of the reading method, we'd go through a quick test of words that you might try to read. And he couldn't read any of the words, which was really a big deal. If you can't read any words, it's like, oh my gosh, what have I got? If someone here that can't read any words. But he went ahead and said, well, if I wanted to, I could. And his attitude was just beautiful. So we taught him the reading method, and he went through the first hour, and he was just repeating everything perfectly. And he was really, really focused. And he went from being kind of a fetal position to opening up and coming forward and being right there on the screen. And then when he took a break, he kind of looked down. He was kind of perplexed because he was thinking about everything we taught him. But he came back and he gave me a high five. I thought he was going to climb in my lap. He was like really had changed. He was a different person. And that's the thing we've noticed when we're teaching someone. They become a different person. Their self-esteem goes off the map. Their confidence level in themselves to be able to do things that they've never done before, like go body surfing or, do things they've avoided in the past. And so we taught him the reading method, and at the end, we asked him, would you like to read some words? And he said, yes. So I brought him out 11 sheets of multi-syllable words, like a big long list, 475 words. And he read, I remember, he didn't read any words in the beginning, not even the word read, R-E-D. He read 475 multi-syllable words on the GED.
And tell me again, you probably said this, but how old was he again?
10.
10, okay. That's amazing.
He was so cool. So at the end, he had read all these words, and his grandmother was sitting next to him on the couch on one side, but she's just tearing. She's so overjoyed. She's just crying and can't believe it. And I'm also crying, but I could cry on one side of my face so that if he was on this side, I would be on this side crying.
So that's like a different talent, but yeah.
Well, it's really a touching feeling to see.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Like that. So after he had read them, and I remembered he had that Harry Potter book with him. I said, would you like to try it with the Harry Potter book? And he said, it'll work with that? And I go, yeah. So yes. I got the book. And remember, he can only read, and then he's read all these words. But now I got to make his understanding. So I handed him the book. I said, go to the table of contents and pick a chapter. And I open it up and I hand it to him. I look away to see. And he's going, first he looks at me like I'm supposed to help him. I don't help him. He goes to the table of contents and sticks his finger and goes down the page. And he picks a chapter. He's got a recognition that chapter is important to him. So he picks it, and I said, well, go ahead and find it in the book. So he goes to the book. He finds that chapter, and he begins to read to me from 1 to 2, 3 pages. And that's all I wanted to do is show that he could read. Then I was going to ask him some questions. And he wouldn't stop reading. He kept reading. So I kept watching him go, okay, I want him to enjoy himself. But finally, after 2 more pages, I put my hand on his hand in the book, and I said, what's going on? He goes, this is better than the movie. Which is a saying that gets said, but for a dyslexic person, Asperger's syndrome, he's never compared a book to a movie.
Right.
He's comparing the book to the movie and knowing the difference, and wants to keep reading because he's getting more information than he had in the movie.
Because the level of detail.
About comprehension, we're talking about big comprehension.
Yeah.
I mean, that's huge comprehension. That's like advanced comprehension. He's not just telling me what color, Harry Potter's shirt is. He's comparing it to something. So I asked his mom, how long ago did you go to the movie? He says, well, I think it was about 7 months ago, the beginning of the summer. So 7 months ago, he saw a movie, and then he got into Harry Potter, and he carries a book with him, but he never read it. And now he's comparing this
Oh, that's
book
so
that he's
great.
reading. It was huge. And then he went on to read all of the books, the chapters or the volumes of Harry Potter. And then they put him in different classes at school, and he went on to.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole world kind of opens up, right? Yeah.
And he never, ever has trouble with reading again. When people learn our reading method, it doesn't go away. We're planting information on the brain.
So again, I know there's like 7 concepts it's built around, but just how would you describe to someone sort of what it does? Like in general, what's like the big overview of how it sort of works?
Well, we have a part of the brain, the frontal lobe of our brain, that we believe is used to read and has Asperger's syndrome or has dyslexia or has had a stroke or even Alzheimer's. And so this part of the brain, we think we have to work on this part of the brain. But when we teach the reading method, a neural pathway is open to the back of the brain. And in fact, the students really sometimes scratch their head in the back because they feel blood flowing into that area.
Yeah. Because it's stimulating a different area of the brain. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. It is. It really is. So they still have a memory through the frontal lobe, but they are reading from 2 or 3 different dormant parts of the brain. So it's a major shift in regards to the learning process and the being able to be conscious of what is going on with a book and words. So we're replanting, and it's really important when we're teaching it that no one interfere with that. Like we teach 7 concepts. 7 is a big, huge number. It's a very important, and there's lots of controversy about it. But we've observed that 7 is the number that people can remember. They take in the 7 concepts. So we teach 7 concepts. And one of the things we teach is, and everybody out there, you can ask yourself, you're a reader and you've been reading before and you know how to read. So, okay, so when you read, you know that each word has vowels in the word, okay? And the vowels are long or short. And everybody knows those words. And of course we know their vowels are long or short. And I ask you, it's a trick question. The answer is I don't know. But the question is, when are they long or short? When you're reading a word, and you'll say maybe it's because there's the E at the end of the word or whatever, but really, what do you use when you go to a word? And what you use is your ability to memorize a word, and you recognize the word. Well, I'm 70 years old this last week, and I don't want to remember all those words. I can't.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. So I don't want to remember all those words, and I can't remember all those words. So now I have 7 concepts that allows me to read every word. There isn't a word I can't read. I just should apply the 7 concepts.
That's great. Okay. So, I know you said like we joked and said from 8 to 98, but what is the oldest person you've ever actually worked with in terms of learning to read?
Well, the oldest person I taught was 94 years old, and she was up in Palo Alto, and she had Alzheimer's syndrome, and she didn't know who I was at all. Every time I go, she'd say, "Oh, are you one of the new doctors?" And I said, "No, I'm not."
Well, doctor of reading.
And so for 4 times I went, and she said, "Oh, I haven't read for 3 years." She said that like 4 days in a row. Finally, I said, "Well, I'm here to teach you to read. The director of the hospital wants me to teach you." "Oh, okay, let's do it right now. It's not like I'm going anywhere." So I teach her the reading method, and she's sitting in a bed, and I teach her personally, not on a video. And in the middle of she looks up and says, "Well, Craig, it's so good to see you." Well, she never used my name before, but all of a sudden something came back on, and she knew who I was. And I met her, 4 times in a row, but 3 days ago. So she was really, really coming forward, and that was exciting. So then we teach her the reading method, and at the end, she starts reading the 475 words, and she stops in the middle, puts her finger down, and says, "Craig, I can read these words, but I'd like to read you something to thank you because you brought reading back to me." And she brings that, "Hand me my Bible. It's in the drawer right next to my bed." So I picked and she says, "And I got some reading glasses." I'm going, "Oh, shoot, I forgot about reading glasses." But luckily, the font I was using was big enough. Oh, shoot. Anyway, so she said, I'm going to read you a verse in the Bible that lets you know how I feel about you and thanking you for teaching me to read again. And she finds a verse. I mean, she's, she can't do that. She's, got Alzheimer's, and she's now opening up a Bible. She's telling me what verse it is. She finds it in the Bible. She opens it and it goes through the Bible. And she opens up and she reads me the whole verse perfectly. Again, before that, she couldn't do that.
So what I think I'm hearing you say then is because of how it stimulates the brain differently in terms of the process, even someone who's obviously has the challenge of Alzheimer's, it's stimulating that part of the brain again for someone to be able to remember some things and to, get back in, and obviously for her to be able to read again. So how cool is that?
Well, you recognize me. I came in the next day. She goes, "There's Craig. He taught me how to read."
Oh, that's great.
And, I mean, it was like, yeah. And then people with that have, have a slurring because they have a stroke, and they can't, they're not very conscious. They're not able to articulate. And after 2.5 hours, they're thanking me for giving them back their life.
So that's really interesting. I'm curious, and you and I haven't talked about this, so I don't know that I absolutely know the answer. Maybe you have mentioned it, but in schools, are they welcoming you to be able to come in and share this with students that are, maybe struggling in that area to learn to read, or is it not with open arms yet on that front?
Well, that's where I'm coming to right now with this program teaching.
Okay.
If you're out there and you are dyslexic or you have reading challenges, or a child that does, really want you to go on our website and learn to read at home. I give it to you for 30 days. You can use it as many times as you want. You don't have to do it at once. But the more people that we have using it online, and then we can take that evidence and share it with the schools. I am in conversation with schools, and they are interested and curious, but often they're committed to other reading methods and curriculum. Mm-hmm. And so the teachers are used to doing something every day.
Yeah, no, it takes a while.
2.5 hours, I teach them to read English. They're going to be able to read in 2.5 hours. But that's a big difference. And now they're going to teach them something else because they're finished with reading within the first, say, 2.5 hours or a week, or could be 2 weeks. So what? So what? Now we have a whole bunch of fun stuff that they can get involved in.
No, that's great. So you are making some inroads, which I think is really great. Let's say a family wants to sit down though, and they have maybe a son or daughter. I mean, I can remember my brother definitely struggled a little bit more on the reading front, and my mom, sitting down with him, not having a clue really how to help him. And for some reason, he every time he'd say Abraham Lincoln, he would say Abraham Linkington. We don't know why, but anyway, but we went through all these gyrations where she was just trying to help him. But could a family take this and literally sit down at their table, maybe with their son or daughter, or maybe one of the parents, obviously could be the case too, but is it something that they could put at their kitchen table and literally share with each other and have some results as a result of that?
Oh, absolutely. They would just go put it at their kitchen table on their computer and click go. And the most important thing is don't interrupt it, don't talk. And if you're a parent and your son or daughter is learning it, tell them you're not going to talk to them until it's over. Craig's going to tell you everything you need to know.
Which sometimes is good. It's coming from someone else. It's better.
Yeah, anyway. Don't talk. Go on the 15-minute walk and don't take your phone. Don't look at anything. Don't add any more concepts to it. It's like if you thought of a caterpillar coming out of a cocoon as a butterfly. We're all tempted. We see this struggling butterfly wanting to come out of the cocoon, and we want to help it. If we do, that it will really disable that butterfly.
Right.
So the same thing with a person learning to read with our reading method. Don't help. Just keep your mouth shut. I have to put my hands over my mouth sometimes because I know that, if I just say this, it'll make a difference. I don't want to make a difference. The reading method is perfect. Don't fix it. And let it happen.
Interesting.
Especially if you're a reading specialist. Don't say a word. You can talk afterwards when you're all done, but don't talk during. Let them struggle.
Let them just absorb it in. Let them stimulate that part of the brain that needs to kick into gear. And interesting. I haven't tried it yet. So obviously, I mean, in terms of really watching what you're talking about right now. So I'm going to have to check it out for sure. But I know you've had some even more recent stories of just some amazing results. With young, I think what you said, a 15 or 16-year-old just recently. learning how to read and how excited they were. So anyway, I know that that's the big thing for you, and you're so passionate about it. So I'm sure they feed off of your energy, but like you said, you have to sit there and just let them do their thing. But I know your passion because you and I've talked. So
one of the things, why also the surprise level of it, and to be me, to watch a miracle, it's a miracle. I call the book, the reading miracle. It is a miracle. I mean, when you're watching someone who can't read, and they come to you and they really can't even read the word red, or they're slurring their speech because they, had a stroke, or they have Alzheimer's syndrome and they don't remember who you are, let alone they can't read. I mean,
right.
The dyslexic, like the two students that you're talking about, I work with in Detroit, they're wonderful kids, but one of the boys had never passed any class in the whole 15 years that he had been in school. And I taught him to read, and I thought he should be an engineer. He was amazing, and he read every word. He was competing with the girl as to who could read first, and he was excited about it. Now, it's like showing that to the school and having them believe that this young man has changed, and continuing to support him in that reading method so he can take other classes, he can keep on expanding. And those are the challenges of hand-holding that I go through with schools and people and administrators and reading specialists. I mean, I asked that question when is a vowel long or short to reading specialists, and that's a trick question because no one knows that answer, but it's key to being able to know that when you're reading. It takes all the guesswork out of it. Me?
Yeah, absolutely. So, have you found in working though with maybe some of the families, or as you've met people, is there, I mean, I feel like sometimes there might be this hush around it, right? Like we don't want anybody to know that our child's struggling with their reading or whatever, or how does the parent kind of talk to the child about it without making the child feel right? So that's why I think maybe in some ways it's good that you're presenting and they're just stepping back from it, right? Because it's really it's kind of a difficult thing maybe on some level for some families, right? To have that, even the conversation about, hey, you're really struggling in this area, we're going to try something new. But instead of the parents trying to teach them, they're able to.
Well, and it becomes down to, which parent caused it, whose genes did they inherit, and each person knows that they had trouble when they were younger. But if they could just understand that they're passing on their brilliance to their child. I'm not kidding. It's not like I'm being nice.
Yeah.
I'm nice, but I'm not being nice in that. I'm really describing accurately that we have a brilliant parent who passed on a brilliant experience of brilliance, but they have challenges with reading. But when I teach them the reading method, there's no challenges with reading. And there really never was. There was challenges with memorizing hundreds of little jingles and all this requirement of memorization, and it was overwhelming. I mean, if you think about it, the word consonant, I have trouble saying the word consonant.
Consonant? Is that what you're saying?
Consonant, yeah, okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, what do you say? No, just kidding. I'm just messing.
Yeah, no, it's cute. That's fine. Or vowel. The word vowel sounds like a dirty word. So we got consonant and vowel. And so we tell a 7-year-old, hi, would you like to hear about consonants and vowels? And they go, no.
No, I don't want to hear about
telling the truth. They're not interested. Why we chose those words to describe it. And then we call them a name. Well, you're dyslexic. The word kids diss people all the time. They don't like the word dis.
Well, and it's just labeling. We're labeling, right? And we don't need to really label.
Well, it has to do with getting paid money in the school. Developmentally disabled pays the school money. We can put this person in a little box. Yeah. Meanwhile, we got our human being who's brilliant, who thinks there's something wrong with them. What if there's nothing wrong with them, other than that they don't understand how to learn to read from what they're being taught? My brother is one of them. And I'm one of them. So we created a reading method as one of them for you, for the person out there who's challenged with reading.
That's great.
And we know what we're doing, and we know exactly. My brother, when he first taught the reading method, he had a preschool, so the age group that he taught was 3 and 4 years old, and they became readers. And I taught people that were 94 and all different ages, with every imaginable reading disability there was, if there's such a thing called reading disability. And I watched them transform in 2.5 hours, and that's really hard to believe. So
yeah, it is. Well, it is.
We need your help out there to help us get to everybody. And
Yeah,
that's
that's the point of this, right? Just to share this message so that more people know that it's out there and that they're brilliant, that they can step into it and own it in a way that allows them, but obviously pick up and be able to open the world, as you said, kind of like open their eyes to a different world in many, many ways. So I think it's amazing. So I want to just put up again real quick for everyone who's watching the website here again. The universalreadingmethod.com is where you can go and get this, and literally it sounds like it's a pretty simple process once they get started around these 7 concepts that you share, and this plugging into the online component of it. They don't need you sitting at their table, although they kind of get that, but you don't have to be in person to touch a lot of people's lives with this. So that's really amazing. So I know it's amazing how fast a half hour goes. I always am shocked, especially when we're just like back and forth on conversation. And but one of the things we do when we kind of end a show, and I think I'm gonna put this on you, and I don't think we talked about it. So, but I like to close a show with the dot. And I don't know, you may have seen that in my stuff, but dot, which is a drop of thought, sort of like what's your pearl, your words of wisdom, a quick hit of something you want people to remember. And I think I already know what it would be for you, but I'll let you do your own dot, and then maybe I'll add on to it if you don't say what I think you're going to say.
Well, I'm not very good at saying what people think I'm going to say.
Okay, we'll find out.
So what would be my dot? My dot would be take a risk to be brilliant. Well,
you brought it up.
And parents, take a risk to see your son or daughter as brilliant. And let them become the greatest they can ever be.
Yeah.
And don't buy into that there's something wrong. Maybe try on that there's something very right, and we have figured out a way to bring that out.
So I hate to say you're predictable, but I was going to say it's about obviously tapping into that brilliance and recognizing that it is truly brilliance. And so I love, would you say, take a risk and be brilliant? I think that's beautiful. So I like it. I like it. That's a good dot. Anyway, thank you for being here. I think you're out doing amazing work, and we'll just continue to share out your information, and maybe we'll have you back on again, because I know you'll have more stories moving forward. But thank you. And then my dot, which I end in every show because I just think it's really important, and it goes with the whole theme of why I do what I do. But in a world where we can be anything, be kind. I
have one last thing to share.
Oh, he's good. Okay, go ahead.
Is that once you learn the reading method, your son or daughter does, you may have to tell them they can't take the books outside with them all the time. My students are always taking the book, hiding it in trees so they can keep on reading instead of going play.
That's because it's gold. Wouldn't we love to see kids doing that? That's a good problem to have in my estimation.
Yeah, that's my favorite problem.
That's a good problem to have. So, all right. Thank you, Craig, so much for being here. We'll chat soon. And, just check out universalreadingmethod.com. So be kind to everyone. We'll see you guys later. Bye.
Thank you.
Just hold on.